Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate all of us taking time out of our day to join us. I hope everybody can hear me well. So you all know the past three months we've been talking about autism awareness. So this is going to be an opportunity to conclude the series. I'm going to share my screen. The format today is going to be a little bit different. We are going to have, I'm going to talk about hold on, trying to open my, there we go. I'm going to talk about autism like we do. The third part of the series, we are going to focus on family support and navigating educational challenges. But I'm also really excited because I have 3 other speakers with me. And I think this is going to be a really good discussion. We are going to learn so much today. So I have no disclosures. I do have, I saw this post on Facebook and I thought this really encompasses what we all want the message to be. That when we see an individual who has autism, we look beyond the autism part. We see that person as an individual. We see that they have different abilities rather than a disability. We see that they have potential, that they are unique. We need to understand that they have feelings. We need to understand that they want to be accepted. And we need to love them for who they are, not just for who we hope they will be someday. I want to acknowledge Raphael Medical Center for this opportunity, giving us this platform to have this discussion. It's been really enlightening and we appreciate that. I also want to thank Hope Setter's Autism Center in Community 11 Tema. This whole series is dedicated to the work that they are doing and the impact that they are making on the lives of children with autism and the community at large. So in addition to me speaking today, I'm going to have Mrs. Barbara Angel share some things with us in terms of some of the educational challenges for children with autism and how her center is trying to address that. She's the founder and director of Hope Setter's Autism Center. Then I have Mr. Musa Hassan. He's a father of a child with autism, and he's also going to share some experiences from a father's perspective. Then I have Mrs. Olivia Bafo Ewa. She's a mother of a child with autism, and she's also going to share her experience with us. So I think this is going to be, I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear them speak. So in the series, first we spoke about what is autism spectrum disorder. If you missed it, Raphael still has the link, you can look at it. Then we talked about autism diagnosis and next steps, which involve screening, diagnosing, and then what happens after that. And today we are going to focus on family support and navigating educational challenges. Professor Stephen Shaw is an education professor and an author who has autism, and he is a strong autism advocate. And he said something which I think sets the tone for today's presentation, that the potential of those of us on the autism spectrum is unlimited, just like everyone else. Just to recap some of the things we talked about, remember that autism spectrum disorder is a behavioral disorder, right? So it is not a medical condition, it is a behavioral disorder. There are 2 main things that we've got to look at. Social communication and social interaction difficulties. And then they have restrictive, repetitive, and sensory behaviors. So it's a behavior disorder. We are not looking at it like in terms of, oh, I can do a medical test, and then they will tell me, just like you do a medical test for malaria, and then you know you have malaria. When it comes to autism spectrum disorder, it is not a medical test that tells us. We look at different behaviors, and then we look at their specific areas that they have difficulties in. So how they interact, how they behave, how they perceive the world around them. And then sometimes how they play is different, how they learn is different. In addition to these 2, sometimes they may have language impairment, sometimes they may have intellectual impairment. And then in addition to that, there's something we call levels of function that we look at to be able to see where they are on the spectrum. Remember, we said it's a spectrum. Spectrum meaning it varies in how it presents. So no two children with autism are the same. They all have different strengths and abilities. Then when it comes to intellectual impairment, I want us to remember that it's also a spectrum, right? They go from having extreme ability in some areas, about more than 60% of kids with autism have above average intelligence to average intelligence. Then they may have some mild disability, moderate learning disability, all the way to severe learning disability. Levels of function is important. So in the past, we used to talk about mild, moderate, severe autism, or we used to have other names, PDD, Asperger's. We don't do that anymore. Now we look at the levels of function that a child with autism has.
We are missing on those.
I'm sorry, level 1, level 2, and level 3. When we look at a level 1, we are talking about a child who may have difficulty initiating social interactions, may have some difficulty organizing and planning problems that can hamper self-independence. So they may still depend on caregivers for certain things, but they are able to interact fairly well compared to someone who has severe deficits. So depending on the level of function, they require certain levels of support as well. So we go from requiring support, requiring substantial support, and requiring very substantial support. So now let's pivot back to family concerns and challenges. Once a child is diagnosed with autism, there's a whole range of emotions and questions that parents have. And one of the things that I hear a lot from a parent, the first thing is that, is my child going to be okay? Well, what does autism mean for my child? What does it mean for the parent? If they have brothers and sisters, if they have a larger family, extended family, grandparents, will my child be able to go to school? Can my child achieve successful learning in school? How will other people treat my child? Is my child going to be picked on, victimized, and bullied? Will my child be able to live independently? Can my child get a job? What happens to the family with a child with special needs? Sometimes there's the parents, the mother, especially in our society, sometimes there's stigma, there is social isolation. People do not know how to interact with them, so they don't want to get near them. Some people even think that you have a child with autism, it means that the family is contagious. They don't even want to have anything to do with them at all. There's the stress factor within the family. Sometimes, depending on where the child is on the spectrum, it can be a challenge as well for parents. And if you guys remember the second story where I talked about Julia's story, that's how it can be. I mean, it can be very stressful sometimes, but then there are also moments of joy and warmness, and where the child just surprises everybody in the family. So the parent with a child with autism wears many hats. They are the therapist. And especially in our part of the world, they have to learn how do I teach my child if my child cannot speak? How do I teach my child functional skills? If the child has some delays in the use of the small muscles or large muscles, the parent is like the speech therapist, the occupational therapist, the physical therapist. So they do all these things. In addition, the parent is also the behavior therapist. Remember, it's a behavior condition. And so sometimes children with autism will have certain behaviors, and the parent has to learn how to manage that. The parents are teachers. Sometimes they cannot even go to school. Some parents keep their children at home. So they have to be the ones to teach them. The parents are interpreters. They have to interpret what their child is doing or trying to communicate. There have been so many times in clinic where I'll have a child with autism do a certain thing, and then I'm totally lost, not understanding what they are doing. And the parents tell me, oh, Dr. Evelyn, this is what they are trying to tell you. You know, the parents write for them. They act as secretaries when they are hairdressers and barbers. And in addition to all of that, they are advocates. They are the ones who knows their child more than anybody else. And so they are the ones who are like the frontline advocates for their children. In addition to that, sometimes children with autism can have sleep problems, and these parents may be sleep deprived, but they still have to get up in the morning and do everything everybody else does. So parents need training and a unique support system to help them take care of their child with autism. So in broad categories, when it comes to family support and resources, there is the developmental therapies. That's how I kind of break it down into these 5 areas, because I think it makes a lot of sense. In terms of the developmental therapies, depending on the age of the child and what kind of function the child has, that child may need speech and language help. They may need teaching with social skills. They may need physical therapy sometimes. So developmental therapies play a significant role when it comes to taking care of a child with autism. It is also important to remember that that means going back, making sure that we are picking up children who have autism, identifying them early, because if we are going to get a good outcome, we've talked about early intervention. Early intervention is key. And early intervention doesn't have to wait till the child is 8 years old. We have to start early intervention as soon as we notice that the child is having some difficulties there. Then another big area is something we call behavior intervention. So behavior interventions, there's like a whole area to talk about with that. But the big things I want you to, all of us to learn is that sometimes children with autism may have certain behaviors which can, for us, we may not understand why they are behaving that way. And it can be difficult and challenging. If you think about a neurotypical child or a child who does not have autism, you can easily take your 5-year-old, let's go to the market, it's not a big deal. But when it comes to a child with autism, even taking them to certain places, transitioning them from, let's move from the house to go and do this outside, or even one activity to another activity can be difficult. If they cannot talk, it's even harder because they can't tell you their basic needs. And so parents have to figure out, how do I help my child in this situation? And then how do I even train my child to be able to communicate with me that way? So there are different tools that are used. And in that category of behavior interventions, there's so many different things that we look at. We look at ABCs, like antecedent behaviors, the behavior itself. The C stands for what happens, the consequences after the behavior. There's something called applied behavior analysis. There's the use of social stories, visual tools. There are different things that can be used to help. But one of the key support things that parents need is behavior interventions as well. As a pediatrician, the health and wellness of kids is of paramount importance. And it becomes even much more important in children with autism too, because they can be picky eaters, they may have difficulties, and that can also affect the way they act and the way they behave. So when it comes to health and wellness, making sure that they have a good, nutritious diet, staying physically active, and adequate sleep. And a lot of times, these 3 areas, especially when it comes to diet and sleep, can be challenging for children with autism. Then every family needs a support network. So when you have a child with autism, you have to find a support network, people that can understand what the child has and how to help you. It's not as easy as, oh, I'm going to the market and I can have my child stay with this person, or I have this to do and I can have my child stay with this person. Depending on where the child is on the spectrum, that can also be very challenging. So part of it is building a support network, making sure that you have people who understand what the condition is, and then they know how to take care of the child. Then safety is a big deal too. Sometimes when it comes to children with autism, because they have difficulties interacting with the environment or understanding, and depending on their level of function, sometimes they take off and they don't even know, they are not looking to make sure that it's safe for them to even run off, or so there's always that risk of them doing some of their behaviors, dumping off things, not understanding that they can hurt themselves. All of that is really important. So having a good support network and a safety plan in place is it's a really good tool to have. In addition to it, one of the things that plays key roles in helping a child with autism is providing a medical home and educational interventions. So educational interventions, we'll talk about that a little bit later, and Mrs. Babincho will kind of share what Hope Setters does on that. But in terms of medical home, I know that the challenge that we have in Ghana is that sometimes you don't know where to send your child. And that can be difficult, because a child with autism, as we have learned, already has difficulties with change and routine and rigidity, lack of flexibility, sometimes transitioning, moving from one activity to another. That child is not a child who can sit in a waiting room for 4 hours. And so finding a medical home where the staff, the doctor understands what your child has, so that when your child is not feeling well, instead of coming to sit at the doctor's office in the general 1 hour, 2 hour waiting to be seen, there's a system in place where you can take the child in as soon as the child gets to the waiting room, for example. Or there are certain tools that are used, also kind of like visual tools, so that the child who cannot even communicate can understand what is being done when they come to the doctor's office. So it's not that simple, but I think it's so important for every parent who has a child with autism to find a medical home. Let them get to know who your child is, so that when they are taking care of that child, they know what they are doing. And that's something which is really important. So broadly, when it comes to educational challenges and support, one of the questions parents go through the mind of a parent is that, should I send my child to traditional school? Can this child go to a public school, a regular traditional school, or does the child need to go to special school? As much as possible, every parent wants to make sure that their child gets the best in terms of education. But also we need to have at the back of my mind that we want to make sure that they are also having tools that would help them to live successful, independent lives. So how do you decide where to send your child? You want a place where they promote language, academic, adaptive, and social skills. So it's not just like a regular classroom where the teacher has no idea how to help and support your child, but then a place where your child has the opportunity to do regular, normal things. And in addition to that, the areas of difficulties that the child has can be addressed. It prepares them for post-secondary education or employment. What resources are available in the school that I'm sending my child to? So you look at it and you're looking for a school that maybe have something we call individual educational plans. So they've put in place goals with in addition to the parent that can help address some of the challenges that the child has. The school should be able to provide therapy support, whether it's speech, occupational, behavior, teaching functional skills. Those are all important aspects of it. And they should have programs that develop unique skills. So remember that children with autism have different gifts and abilities. They have different talents. We cannot just send them to school and not have and not give them the necessary nurturing and environment for them to develop those skills. The past year with COVID has been really hard in terms of accessing services. Even here in the US, a lot of kids, especially children with autism and other developmental conditions, having access to their therapy services have been interrupted. And when the school system was shut down, including Ghana, when the school system was shut down, a lot of these kids have difficulty already accessing services. And then when the school system is shut down, it becomes even more difficult. We are looking for a school that always has something in place. We'll have a plan in case that school is out. Well, what happens in terms of access to all the therapy support? Because we know that you want continuous therapy, you don't want it to be interrupted. Temple Grandin is another scientist, author, and autism advocate. She has autism herself. And one of the things that she has said, which is inspiring for me, is that there needs to be a lot more emphasis on what a child can do instead of what a child cannot do. So we always look at, whenever there's somebody with a developmental disorder or special needs, we are always, I think we kind of tend to focus more on what they cannot do, but we have to remember that these children can have such unique abilities that we need to focus on what they can do as well. And more, especially when it comes to the workplace, there are a lot of people that are looking at the unique skills that people with autism bring to the workplace. So you have tech companies like Microsoft, SAP, car manufacturing companies like Ford, accounting firms like Ernst & Young, pharmacies, who are now looking to employ children with autism or people with autism because they have these unique skills that sometimes suit a particular job and they are able to do it. And some of their skills is the fact that the way they think, the way they are able to work and do things over and over again, they have such great work ethic, they are dependable. Once you show them the routine and they pick the routine, they will do what they are supposed to do. They are focused, they are detail oriented. So things that people may miss, a person with autism will pick it up. They are able to find unique solutions to things that a lot of times a regular, for lack of a better word, regular people cannot even find. And so depending on the skill set that that person has and the job that is in place, they are such good fits and they do exceptionally well in those positions. So we have to start broadening our outlook when it comes to persons with autism, especially in developing countries like in Ghana, for example. We have to start looking and recognizing that they have such unique skills and talent. We haven't even tapped into it yet. So if they can't learn the way we teach, we need to teach them the way they learn. And this is really important, right? Because if we are forcing to teach them the way we've been teaching them all along, and they are not learning that way, it becomes even more important for us to figure out ways to teach them differently. Because they learn, they just learn differently. So this is a good segue for me to bring Mrs. Baba Angel into this discussion. I think that it's important for her to share her experience being in the educational sector in terms of how she takes care of children with autism and what her program offers to them. I'm gonna stop my share here and then let me pull up hers. So Auntie Baba, if you want to start talking about the educational support challenges and support for children living with autism and your experience at Hope Setters.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. And thank you so much, Dr. Evelyn Dumor, for this opportunity, and of course, Rafa Medical Centers. My name is Baba Angel. I'm the founder and director for Hope Setters Autism Center in Tema, Ghana. And I'm very glad to be here and to talk to you about the educational challenges that and the support for children living with autism. At Hope Setters Autism Center, where I work, what we practice is special education. And special education basically means that we address the individual differences that a child has. We make sure that we have planned and very well structured system and way of teaching for the individual with autism. And also we have the correct and conducive environment and materials or teaching aids to be able to support an individual living with autism. In Ghana, we have the Ghana Education Service has a unit for special education. And so we have about one in every district, every region, we have one special needs school that is under the Ghana Education Service. We also have the Ghana Inclusive Education Policy, where the policies put together where the parents or the government is trying to put together persons living with special needs and persons who are not living with special needs to be able to work together or learn together in a very conducive environment, which means that persons who do not have autism would be able to understand and accept them as they come with whatever challenges that they are. And then we also have the University of Winnipeg, which has courses for on special education for teachers who are interested to do that. There are a few private special needs schools, most of them based in Accra, and a few others scattered around in the few regions in Ghana. And so when it comes to special education, this is basically what we have here in Ghana. Most of the private special schools are private or run by private individuals. So when we come to special education, or we talk about special education, there are various practices which Dr. Dumor has even mentioned already, and they are the best practices that we need to put in place to be able to support children living with autism. First, you would want to look at the IEP, that is the Individualized Educational Plan. At Hope Success, it is a very important factor of whatever we do there, because though we have these individuals come to the center with autism, like it has been explained earlier on, is a spectrum. And so we have different levels of autism being affected, or the children being affected with autism. And so we have visual aids and other tools that we need to be able to put in place to support such individuals. Visual aids, because we have some individuals with autism who are visual learners, which means that I might say so much, but then if whatever I'm saying, they can also see it in pictures, they would better understand that. They need routine. If you're very familiar with persons living with autism, you realize that they thrive very well when they have very well-structured routines in their day-to-day activities. And so we try to provide a routine for them as soon as they come to the center. We have learning materials, special learning materials that we need to put in place. When it comes to special education or teaching children with autism, it is not a board and a marker issue at all. You need a lot of things like Legos, Play-Doh, bubbles, abacus, so many other things for you to put in place so that you make sure that learning has taken place and then also teaching has taken place. We work with therapists, and some therapists that we work with when it comes to supporting children with autism at Hope Setters is a speech and language therapist, the ABA therapist, a behavior therapist, the occupational therapist, and even sometimes a physical therapist. And we break all these down in the various therapies that we do. So we have speech and language therapy. Those are some of, I'm just coming to list a few of the therapies that we use for the children at Hope Setters Autism Center. And so we have speech and language therapy. We have occupational therapy that basically helps the children to be able to run their day-to-day activities. So we have gross motor activities, fine motor activities, aqua therapy, where they get to play in water or do other activities with water. We have a safe and serene environment, quiet environment, so that they don't get so much distracted. Safe environment means they have a very big compound, walled and gated place, so that you'll be sure that you don't have your students running off. Parents training becomes very important when you are assisting or educating persons with autism, because we'll be doing this hand in hand with parents. The parents need to be trained to be able to understand that this challenge that my child has, they are not trying to just have a bad behavior, but they'll be communicating one way or the other. Once the parents understands the various behaviors of the individual, it becomes very easy and not frustrating for them to be able to help with whatever the center also does with them. So some of the challenges that in my line of work I encounter is that we have inadequate therapists. Like I mentioned earlier on, speech and language therapists. A few years back, the Allied School of Allied Sciences started a course, a master's course on speech and language. And which means that we have very limited professionals like that to work with the children. Once they come out of the university, they have to be taken to the various big centers and big hospitals, the large number of people who would need their services. Occupational therapists. So we don't have enough of them in Ghana for the centers to be able to have just one all to themselves. Trained teachers. Like I said earlier, we have University of Winneba who train teachers, but then most teachers are not really ready to be able to go into the special education sector because it's difficult. And so it is very difficult for you to be able to get very well trained teachers. Or even in the government specimen centers are very limited. It's difficult when the parent gets assessment or gets the diagnosis of a child having autism. Then you'd really want to, the parents would want to have access to these various centers, assessment centers, but it's very limited. I'm doing this, just live in the house with the children. The knowledge gaps about the various disabilities is crucial. A lot of people kind of mix them all up. And so somebody would say, oh, does this child have autism? I don't see it. And I'm like, what exactly are you looking out for? Because it is a brain and behavior disability. You would have to observe the child for a while. It isn't something physical, unless the person, of course, has a comorbidity where the person has autism and something else, or maybe CP. But apart from that, you would have to really take your time and observe the individual so that you'll be able to know that the person is on the spectrum. High functioning, high financial costs. It's so difficult and financially draining for the parents who have to take care of these children who are living with autism. For you to be able to get the diagnosis, for you to be able to get the support, for you to be able to have people even come home to work with your children or take your child to special schools are very, very difficult course that the normal parents or the average parents in Ghana really struggles to be able to have that support. Like Hope Setters, so much resources had to be put in so that we'll be able to have a unique learning environment for our students. We needed a big place where children can really run around, playground, very big classrooms and airy classrooms, and also rooms for various therapies. And all is very costly. And so for us to be able to have that is even very expensive in Ghana. But then we need to all together put all these things together. At Hope Setters Autism Center, our mission is to provide adequate caregiving and train our students in a way that their families and individuals would even understand and appreciate. Our vision is to equip these individuals, no matter their levels of functioning, to be as independent as possible and to be also accepted in society. So that's how come we do a lot of awareness programs so that people will be able to know and accept them the way they are. So some of the services that we provide at Hope Setters Autism Center, like I mentioned earlier, is speech and language therapy, behavior management, functional skills, which means that we are training the individual to be able to do the various functions that he would need to be able to run their day-to-day lives, go through a day-to-day life, like using the washroom, washing your own clothes, ironing your own clothes, washing your plates when you finish eating, so that they don't have to depend so much on other people. Talent enhancement, yes. Like Dr. Dumor said earlier on, sometimes we can get some of these children who have special talents. For us at Hope Setters, we are very keen on making sure that we have been able to identify those talents and also enhance it as much as possible, so it becomes part of your program at the center. Of course, if we want the children to be able to read, to be able to write, then it means we need to also work with them when it comes to academic skills. We have some of the students who are very good when it comes to academic skills. The basic things that they would need in academics, we follow the years curriculum and work with them on academic skills. We have aquatherapy, aerobics, and massage just to calm their nerves, play in water like most of them would want to do. So they come to the center and they realize that they've come to a safe haven because we do just what they want for their system. We have an innovative center which basically looks at autism and innovation. Everything that we'll be able to create just to be able to support persons living with autism, we do at the Innovation Center. So our theme for that Innovation Center is all about autism. We also have the respite care, where we give some kind of support to parents, where we have parents bring their children on Mondays and then pick them up on Fridays so that they can have that break in the course of the week for parents who are running up and down, going to work with time factor and everything. And then we have weekends where they go to spend time with their families. So for the past 7 years that Hope Setters Autism Center has been in existence, we have impacted over 10,000 people. And the breakdown of this is that we have about 1,500 children living with autism that we have touched. All these figures that you see as a collective figures put together because we do a lot of awareness on radio, on TV, on the various social media platforms. We do walks, autism awareness walks every April. And so all these people that we touch there, all these people that get in touch with us, all these people who are able to read, understand, call us, are all put together for the past 7 years. And we can confidently say that we have been able to support these number of persons and families living with autism in Ghana. In conclusion, I'll say that if you're at your wit's end, you've gotten your diagnosis and you don't know where to take your children, come to Hope Setters Autism Center. Our doors are opened. It's a safe haven for your child. Your child will be dealt with as an individual. His or her various challenges will be dealt with on individual basis. Thank you so much for listening to me. And you can also contact us on Hope Setters Autism Center tm@gmail.com. Our website is hopesettersautismcenter.org.gh. We are located at Tema Community 11 near the All Saints Catholic Church. And our numbers are 0242172405 and then 0209845445. Thank you so much and have a blessed day.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us, Mrs. Baba Angel. We really appreciate it. It's so important for families to know what to do once they have a child who is diagnosed with autism. So I want to shift this discussion for us to talk to parents who have children with autism. So in my line of work, one of the things that I have realized is that whenever I tell a family that they have a child with autism, even the reaction, whether it's a father or a mother, is different. So it depends on how they all process this information. And so I am really grateful that I have Mr. Hassan and Auntie Olivia on here, Mrs. Olivia, to talk to us about their experience. Let's start off with Mr. Hassan.
Thank you, Doctor. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm actually in a lying position. I'm sure you can see me. I just want to show my face that I can turn the video off and comfortably. I can't see everybody. So this is me lying down here with my mobile phone. Thank you for having me here, and good afternoon to everyone on this platform right now. My name is Al-Hassan Musa. I'm a parent of a child with autism, and I was so surprised that Baba had done this presentation. I wasn't expecting that. I wanted to do the presentation for her because of what Hope Setters have done for my son, Chelpan. So quickly, I know we are a number of speakers here, so I'm going to go quickly to what I want to touch on. And I have 4 key points here. I'll tell you how we got diagnosed, i.e. how Chelpang got diagnosed. I also tell you how we handled it as a family. And thirdly, I would like to share some of the strengths Chelpang has gathered over the years. Basically, I would say from his attending Hope Setters Autism Center. And then finally, I will touch on some of the challenges we've encountered over the years up until now. And in fact, some of these challenges keep coming and going. So if I may call them symptoms. So one symptom comes for a while, a month, 2, sometimes years, and then it falls off. Another one, surfaces. So we keep battling with that. So how did we diagnose Chelpang as autistic? We never got a diagnosis formally. We never. Chelpang was born, I think, January 4th, 2005. I never heard anything about autism. He was quite okay. And I think by the age of 6 months to 7 months, Chelpang could actually pick a TV remote and change the channels. This was a stage where he was even learning how to sit. And I thought it was accidental, but it wasn't. He was that aware. He could change TV channels, especially TV3. He used to like TV3. And somewhere by 1 year, we thought something was wrong because he was our first child. We had no experience, any child, and we saw that he wasn't making any noises that others would make of his age. So long story short, we went around so many medical facilities, 37 Rich Hospital, Kolebu, name it. We met a doctor called Professor Nikwe. Then I think that was the first time I saw the word autism. So she put that autism on the form she was scribbling on, and then hearing impairment. So we went to do hearing test. Chelpang was okay. So as soon as I saw autism, I went online checking to find out what this word was. And lo and behold, Chelpang was there, So we tried to get a formal diagnosis. We never got it. There was a doctor called Dr. Bedu then. I think he was he was the doctor who had interest in autism that much during those days, around 2006, 2007. We went to meet him on 3 different occasions, pay consultation fees. Then it was hectic, but we never got formal diagnosis. But when I read all these things, I concluded that that was it. And that was our diagnosis. So up until now, as you would expect in Ghana here, you are unlikely to get a formal diagnosis. And if you do get it, I'm not sure what you are going to do with it. So that was that. That's how we got Chelpang
Mr.
diagnosed.
Hassan, how old was Chelpang when you finally, when you were settled that he had autism? How old was he?
He would have been like 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
And I think the thing that stood out was lack of language or speech, hyperactivity. Yes, so very short attention span. He wouldn't look at what you are looking at or what you are drawing his attention to. He wouldn't point at objects he's interested in, so many things. So at the age of 2 to 3, I could tell clearly that Chelpang wasn't a neurotypical child. Okay. So that was that. It was more like a self-diagnosis.
Sure.
So how did we handle this thing? I had read widely, and since then, I think for the next 5 years, there wasn't a single day passing without me reading something on autism. So it got to a point I sat in front of a doctor who was retired and came back to work on part-time basis. And I was talking about autism, and the doctor asked me how I learned all this. And I told him that I've lived my life with an autistic person for the past 5 years, day and night. So how we handled it, mother wouldn't take it. Mother would cry and cry and cry. you know, but I had already done my crying whilst I was researching. You know, as a head of the family, I don't have to cry for everybody to see. So we took it. You were the only child then, no any other child to explain to or to whatever. I mean, we got all these suggestions from family members. Take him to the pastor, take him to the malam, take him to wherever. Somebody might have done that to him and all that. I never bought into any of that because I had already read and I saw testimonies of even people in the medical field who had their kids with autism. Yeah. So I knew that it wasn't just Japan alone, and it wasn't just in Ghana alone. If it was any demon or any Samhain, that thing would have done that to every other child in the world with autism, you know. Sure. So I didn't buy into that. I was looking for help, you know. At that time, there was no help. I guess there was no hope setters at that time. I ended up somewhere. That's where I got to know Baba. And when Baba set up Hope Setters Autism Center, at first I doubted what she could do. And I asked somebody, and the person gave me some assurances. And since then, I haven't regretted taking Chelpan there. And I can tell you, Chelpan said his first word, his first meaningful word when he was 10 years at his 10th birthday. Wow. Chelpan never said anything meaningful. He was just making, I would call it useless noises, singing to himself, things he would have heard on radio or TV and that. Until his 10th birthday, when we cut the cake, sang happy birthday to him, and then mom asked him to say thank you, and he said thank you, and he meant what he said, and he knew what he was saying, all thanks to Hope Setters. By then, I think he was already with Hope Setters for probably 2 years or so. So that was that. We just took it. We went through the phases of why me? I asked myself, why not me? I mean, if it's not me, who do I expect? Whose child do I expect to have autism? So we've gone past. It comes up from time to time, but we've gone past that. Chelpan, I think, over the years has grown, you know, in several ways. As I speak now, thanks again to Hope Setters, Chelpan can prepare his own breakfast. He can do a number of things for himself. Prepare food is one of his favorite. When it comes to food, Chelpan can be, I think, self-reliant. Right now, as we speak, I think he learned how to ride bicycle by probably age 5 or so. So those things that he's interested in, he can quickly pick it up with the required help. One other thing I think Hope Setters are doing well, I see Chelpan has very good interest in IT things, so laptop, tablet, online things. I think the first time he took my tablet, he did things that I was marveled. He could download things at a time when his siblings didn't even know what it was. And, you know, one of the things that any parent having a child with autism always thinks about is grooming. As they grow, I hope you are listening to me. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. You know, those of us with kids with autism, as they grow into adolescent age, you are thinking of grooming. So how can he groom himself? In the past, you couldn't even barber his head. He's so sensitive to his head. But now I am so amused. I mean, I am so touched that he's able to shave his pubic area, both his armpit and his pubic, any part of his private part. Chelpan can do it very neatly. I wonder where he learned it from. Baba should be able to explain to me, because I never saw that on his terminal report. But I'm glad, I'm so happy. That one alone is enough for me to bring Chelpan to school. And he does dishes. He can just walk out from his room and come to the kitchen and do all the dishes. But don't force him to do it. If you tell him to come and do it, he will not do it. But if he likes, he just comes in there, does it, and then goes back. And he knows how to do it better. You know, autistic people, they are much more detailed. He scrubs everything and cleans with napkins, you know. Just so we move quickly and let the other speakers also talk. Challenges, that is the big thing. You know, from day one, you would expect us to have challenges as parents, as partners. Mom and dad would have problems. And I can say that Chelpang is, for me, 50% reason why we are still married today. And people will be surprised, because I think research probably shows that, couples with kids with autism have higher chance of divorce than couples without kids with autism. But here we are. I can say without doubt that Chelpang accounts for 50% of reason why I am still here with his mom. And I'm saying this because most of the time, if we have challenges in our relationships, both of us would look to Chelpang and forgive each other. And to let you know, Chelpang's name means forgive. That's his name. Only God knows why I named him Forgive. And that is the reason why we are here. So we have challenges where mommy cannot go to work. She's gone through schooling. Most of her schoolmates are working. She couldn't go to work because you don't have anybody to take care of Chelpang for him to go to work during those days until we found Hope Setters. You know, going out is another thing. So you mentioned it, going to public places like the malls. In the olden days when he was younger, even driving from Tema to Accra on motorway was a challenge. You could be driving and Chelpang would just open the car door in the middle of motorway whilst you are speeding, trying to come down and wee or something. You know, so in those days I could just stop by before we hit motorway. I'll stop by and let him wee before we get onto motorway. Now we can go to the malls, but sometimes you go to the malls, for example, he wants to use the washroom. The washroom is so strange to him with all those corners, turns left and right. He doesn't know what is in there. So you can't get him into those places to use it. So you can imagine this big boy of 16 years wanting to use the washroom, yet he can't go there. If you are not careful, you will just try to do it out there in public. So some of these things are big challenges for.
Thank you, Mr. Hassan. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is very, very helpful, putting it into perspective for those of us on the call and who do not have children with autism and not understanding that dynamic. So I want to shift to Auntie Olivia. I wanted to talk about it from a mother's perspective as well.
Hello.
Hi, Auntie Olivia. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this opportunity too. I think Mr. Alasan has said it all. I don't even know what else to add, but I need to speak anyway. So autism, as we all know, is a lifelong neurological disability, and it affects a person's ability to communicate, understand language, play, socially interact with others. There are so many challenges in raising a child with autism. And these challenges are precarious when one is a single parent. So Bema's story, around age 1, I realized that Bema wasn't responding when I smiled at her. Sometimes she would smile back, sometimes she wouldn't. I became a bit worried, and I jokingly complained that my child was too serious. That was because I didn't even know anything about autism at that time. So when she was a little beyond 1, I was expecting her to start saying mama, dada, to try and start and repeat what others say but she wasn't doing any of those things. So I took her to a pediatrician. I thought it wasn't normal because I've had a child before her, and I saw all those milestones in that child. So I knew there was probably something wrong. So I took her to see a pediatrician, and the pediatrician told me that she thinks she's okay, and that I should start getting worried when she's around 2, and I had not seen any of those milestones. So around 2, truly, she could, sometimes she will respond to her name. Sometimes when you call her, sometimes I don't know whether she pretends or what. It's as if she hadn't heard you call her, or she hadn't heard you even speak. So I got a little aggressive about that, and I took her for assessment. In fact, I took her to Mamobi Polyclinic Hearing Center. There was an audiologist there. I took her to see him, and he referred us to the Achimota Assessment Center. When we went to the Achimota Assessment Center, they thought she couldn't hear properly. So I was asked to take her to a hearing center. So we went to Konfanochi Teaching Hospital, their audio department, because at that time, Kolebu didn't have an audio center here. So at the Konfanochi audio center. Hello.
We can hear you now. We lost you there for a little bit. We can hear you. Mm-hmm.
All right. So
I think we lost her again. Whilst we wait for her to come on, I think that is important for us to acknowledge the shared experience. And I know a lot of us have questions that we would like to ask. Ate Olivia, are you back?
Yes, here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Can you continue, please?
All right. So I was advised to take her for assessments at the Konfanochi Audio Center. I took her there, and they ruled out hearing as a problem because she could respond to even faint sounds.
Sure.
So at that time, I was a bit desperate because I didn't know what was happening. And all this while, no one mentioned autism. I was then advised to take her for assessment again at a Heart Hearing Center at Wuwashi. It was there that the audiologist mentioned autism. And that was the first time I heard the word.
Okay.
Audiologist then asked me to take her to Autism Awareness and Training Center for further assessment at Kokomlemle. And I went there, I met Santi Sewa, we talked, we shared experiences, and then she also directed me to see a neuropediatrician, Dr. Badu, at Kolebu.
Okay.
And so at Kolebu, Dr. Badu confirmed it, and just like you rightly said in your presentation, that it's not like she had a headache or stomach ache that she can be prescribed with something to alleviate it.
Yeah.
So after the diagnosis,
how old was she at that time?
she was a little above 2.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So after the diagnosis, I was in denial for so many years. I cried, I cursed, I was angry. I didn't even care about how I looked. So after I beat myself to all these, she started attending a special school at Kokomlemle. That was before she turned 3.
Okay.
So after attending the special school for about 2 years, she started a mainstream school in Tema.
Okay.
And there I saw a little improvement in her speech and social behavior.
Okay.
So a friend told me along the lines, about Hope Setters Autism Center in Tema. So I moved Bema there from the mainstream school. But before I moved Bema totally, she was doing 2 days of the mainstream, and I realized that at a point in time I couldn't cope with the both fees.
Sure.
So I weighed the two sides that gave her the side that gave her the maximum benefit, and we
Sure.
decided to let her go to the special school. So in Hope Setters, she has learned a lot. Mr. Alasan has said it all. She's able to do dishes. She's able to, communicate, sometimes in pictures, sometimes she uses words, So Hope Setters, thank you so much. Mr. Alasan has said it all. I don't need to add anything to it.
So last one here, my last one here is this morning, just this morning, a challenge and some good news. Last night, Chelpan actually locked his brothers out of the room, and they had to sleep in my room. Yes, he just went into the room with a tablet, thinking that they will come and take it away from him. He locked himself in.
Yeah.
Yes, playing with it. And this morning, he was the first to wake up around 4:45, went into the kitchen to do his usual breakfast. There was no sugar. He walked up here and told me, there's no sugar. Let's go and buy sugar. This is Chelpan talking.
Wow.
And I'm sure Baba will not believe this. Yep.
That is very exciting.
This is your job.
Yeah.
As for the challenges, a lot. Even now, I have my house is made up of about 5 bedrooms, but I can't fit into any of those because my madam has packed giddy, giddy, giddy. So my family has been supportive. My husband, my mom, aunties, uncles, my siblings.
Awesome.
I don't know if they talk behind my back, but they have been very supportive as far as I'm concerned.
Did you have to educate your family about autism?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did that. After I learned to accept the situation and started reading about it and understood it, I also educated some of them. I mean, there are people who come to the house, family members who come to the house, and they think she's a spoiled girl. And I take the opportunity to explain to them what is happening. Yes.
All right.
So Bema has...
Tell us about her strengths. What are some of her strengths?
Yes, that was what I was going to. She has quite a number of them. She's very fashionable. Auntie Baba can testify to this. She loves to dress up. She loves to make up. She helps around with the house chores sometimes. I mean, when she's in the mood to. Then you are on your own. She can cook. She can fry yam. She can peel the yam, fry it in oil. She can prepare from start to finish, fried yam and fried egg.
Wow.
So it's her lack of fashion and beauty that made Hope Setters arrange to let her learn how to braid hair and how to bead. So she can bead and she can also braid hair.
Wow. And I'm sure when she's doing those things, because of her attention to detail, they come out really, really well too.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So we've also have a number of challenges. Generally there are some challenges in raising children with autism. There's the financial challenge, there's the emotional challenge, there's the physical challenge. Because there's no government support system, there's no proper structure in the public schools. Every therapy or intervention you want for your child, you need to pay for, and it's not cheap. Emotionally, there's stigmatization. There's this woman in my church. Anytime we go and sit beside her, she packs bag and baggage and moves as far from us as possible.
Wow.
And when that happens, when I see people behaving like that, I seize the opportunity and explain what autism is. And sometimes I get the feedback like, hey, then my cousin has a child like that, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yes, I talk about Bema a lot. I talk about her on my most of my WhatsApp group platforms. I share her pictures. I share some of the things she's able to do, and almost always I have positive feedback. Some of them reach out to me privately and encourage me. Some of them also tell me they are going to pay more attention to their children on the spectrum.
Okay.
And the emotional challenges associated with raising children on the spectrum too, not knowing what to do, not knowing when your child is initially, not knowing what to do when your child is initially diagnosed, knowing where to take your child to school, not even knowing about autism itself is emotionally draining. And at this juncture, I will also talk about awareness. I think we are not creating enough awareness because the whole year we use only April as a month of autism awareness creation, and I think that is not good enough because people still don't know. People still don't know. Even some of my mates who live outside UK, US, Germany, Holland, how I got Bema to be able to post the camera like that, they ask for tips, So I think we still need some education.
Okay.
And also not knowing what the future holds for your child, not knowing how things are going to turn out when you are not physically strong to take care of your child, will be very, very daunting. And like you rightly said, you wonder if your child can ever live independently without any care. I mean, without the care of you as the parents. So in conclusion, I would say that in all these, we need to care for them with lots of love and patience, because it is in loving and taking care of them that we unearth the potential, the skills, the talents in them. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Auntie Oliver. We really appreciate both you and Mr. Hassan sharing your personal stories, your personal experience. This is a lived experience. You continue to live it. But I'm so grateful that you are able to see their strengths and also address their challenges at the same time. And my hope is that with this discussion, it allows other people to recognize the importance of early intervention. Because honestly, both you and Mr. Hassan got your kids diagnosed pretty early. Research shows in Ghana that most kids are not diagnosed till they're about 8 years of age. So for you to have the foresight, and the interesting thing is that about 80 to 90% of parents know that there is something not right with their child before the child is 2 years of age. So having the foresight to pursue it, the strength to pursue it, and to realize that this is what is going on, dedicating yourself to learning more about autism, that to me, I mean, you both parents, you are just like superheroes when it comes to autism. And then also pushing through, not giving up, and then recognizing the fact that I need to make the best decisions for them, finding interventions, whether it's educational, family behavior. So I'm so grateful for you to share your experiences with us. Dr. Mensah, we switch off to questions if the participants, anybody has questions for us.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Dumor. It has been a very interesting side today. I've particularly enjoyed the lecture and then the testimonies from the parents. It's really educative. Please, I think that this is a time for us to ask questions. If any of us has any questions to ask,
you can chat it in.
We're supposed
questions if they
leave the questions in the chat box, but I don't see any question in the chat box as such. I think that if you can't ask, you can chat it in the box and then we read it out.
Yeah.
Please, any question? Well, it seems we've run out of questions from the 2 lectures. And then
so it means that we really did a good job, or
I think we've done an excellent job.
So this is a question for both Mr. Hassan and Auntie Olivia. Auntie Olivia shared the story of a church and somebody, people even not wanting to sit with her, which I thought was so heartbreaking. But for her to even have the strength and the foresight to use that as an opportunity. It's in so many ways, you always start off with where you are, right? So you start off with your immediate environment. When you talk to opportunities come up about, I always tell my kids, we look for teaching moments, right? So you look for those opportunities, then you can talk about what autism is, special needs kids in general. But specifically with autism, I think you always have to start off with your environment. There are a lot of us that belong to social groups. We can start talking about it in our social groups as well, making sure that people understand what this is. And when Mr. Hassan was talking about all the advice he was getting from people and then putting it in perspective, you know, usually in our parts of the world, that's what happens. I was touched when he talked about how his son has kept them together, because he is right. There's a lot of times that families are separated when they have a child with special needs because of the challenges. So I definitely think that starting off with where you are, the social groups and networks and contacts that you have, let that come up in the discussion. That's one way to do it. If you have an opportunity to speak to a group, that is one way you can also talk about it. So talking about it is always a starter, and that helps to start the conversation, and then more and more opportunities are created that way. I don't know if any of you have any other contributions in terms of awareness creation. And then, you know, I was just thinking about, besides April, which is Autism Awareness Month, there are other times during the year, whether it's if you have the opportunity to set up something through TV or radio, or, you know, in a forum like this, that's also another way that we create awareness. Any other contributions on that question?
Hello, Dr. Dumor. I think that in Ghana, we do a lot of education on hypertension, diabetes, and churches, schools, and other places. I think that we should take it upon ourselves to add on autism. I think we've done enough of hypertension and diabetes, and this is the time for us to take this also on, so that we get parents educated and even the general public, because people need to know. People think that autism is kind of like Down syndrome or cerebral palsy.
Yes.
So they need to see something like that before they agree that the child is autistic. So we kind of misdiagnose that a lot. So probably I think that we need to do more in the churches. People go to church a lot in Ghana.
Yeah.
And schools are opened now. So even teachers need to be educated, because some of these children are also sent to school, and because the teachers are not aware, they tend to create more problems, because you know, in Ghana you have to pay attention, to be able to be the best student, and teachers need to see the differences in children so that they can see how they'll be able to help the child, so that they can actually help us diagnose them when the parents bring them to.
Sure. So you are right. So when it comes to community involvement, that's one way, is making sure that we are reaching out through churches, mosques, local organizations, giving us that platform and talking about it. And so if you have the opportunity to do it, that's really important for us to do. The more conversations we have about it, the more we educate people. I mean, I think that the church should be the last place where a person with autism shouldn't fit in. It's our goal. That's where we are supposed to be inclusive and supportive. And so that definitely is one of the things that we can do. In addition to that, there's a question here about, does exposure of children to TV and electronic devices at a really early stage over prolonged time affect their neurological development or autism expression? So that's a really good question. I will tell you, from, if I put on my general pediatrician hat, that we really do not want children staying on the iPad and doing all of that before the age of 2. When I was growing up, a lot of the time that kids spent was playing outside, imagining things, doing all of, just running around, creative play, fun, doing different things without the tablet. I think that the challenge that we have now is that just the ready accessibility to tablets. And so children spend so much time at a very crucial point of child development. If we think about the fact that the child's brain is connecting about 1 million neurons per second the first 3 years of life, that's when we've got to take so much advantage in terms of what we do with their learning and exposure and training and all of that, reading and engaging with them at that age. And so when they are playing on a device, yes, it may be a story, or it may be ABC, or it may be something that we think is learning, but it's a one-way streak. They are not interacting like they're supposed to. They are pushing buttons and looking at images. It's different from actually you as a parent picking up a book, reading with your child, pointing to pictures. The child is looking at your face, looking at your facial expressions, looking at your gestures, all of that. So we definitely want to make sure that we are not doing that. Does that develop into autism? Not necessarily. But I think that overall, in terms of health and neurological development, exposing your children to electronic devices and prolonged TV and all of that before the age of 2 is really not recommended. There's a question here, is autism not hereditary? We did talk about genetics risk factors in terms of autism, that there is some that we found that runs in families. So when you look at the second presentation, I think the first or second presentation that I did, we talked about that in detail, and you can always go back and watch those. There's a question about, how do I deal with my 4-year-old with autism who now loves to use no for everything? It is a fight to get him to do things he used to do without a fight. So this is one of the things where we talk about behavior interventions, right? And how important it is for a parent to have some training, because it's really hard to parent a child with autism sometimes without the parent having the skill set as well. So this is a whole area of behavior intervention and behavior therapy. And there are certain things that can be done, but then we also need to know the background story for your child, and then to be able to redirect him so that that fight doesn't go on. What is the difference between autism and speech delay? So autism is different in the sense that it has a unique set of conditions, a unique set of presentations, which has to do with social communication and social interaction, difficulties in that area, in addition to having restrictive, repetitive behaviors and sensory behaviors. So in that sense, whilst when it comes to speech delay, you may have a child who may not be talking, but that child still gives eye contact. That child still responds. When you talk to them, they understand what you are saying, even though they may not be talking back, or sometimes they do not understand what you are saying. But then they interact, they play, they know how to feed a doll, they give affection, they do not they are not obsessed or fixated on specific interests. They are interacting with other children. They are not afraid to play with other children, even though they may not have speech. So when it comes to autism, you have to meet those criteria. It includes a lot more things than speech delay. However, speech delay can be a subset, can be a presenting symptom of autism too. So a lot of times that is one of the things that parents pick up first. And I think when Mr. Hassan was talking about his son, and he talked about at 6 months old, he could switch and play with the remote and knew what to do with it, yet he couldn't communicate when he got to a certain age where they were expecting him to communicate. So he did have speech delay. And sometimes that is the one thing that parents are able to tell, that the child has a speech impediment. Sometimes children with autism may talk, they may use words, but they may not use the words functionally. So we use words to communicate, we use words to express ourselves, we use words in a way that somebody talks, I understand what they are saying, and then I can respond. It's a back and forth conversation. However, children with autism sometimes have difficulties with that. The next question there is ADHD with speech delay the same as autism? The simple answer that it's no. So ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It's a type of neurodevelopmental disorder. So it's kind of like in the same group with autism, but it's a different presentation. So they have difficulties with inattention, or they're hyper-focused when they are doing things, easily distracted. They are very fidgety, can't stay still. They are very impulsive in their behavior. Both ADHD, speech delay, can be comorbid conditions with autism too. So they're different. You can have autism and have ADHD together. You can have autism and not have ADHD. You can have autism and have speech delay or language impairment, as we call it, or you may have autism and not have language impairment. So you can have some behaviors that kind of run through, but it's not the same thing. So I hope that helps with the question a little.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dumor. Please, Dinah reached out to me privately. So her question was, she has a 2-year-old child who is not speaking at all. Child is hyperactive, and he bangs his head against anything he finds when he's angry. So she saw a pediatrician, and she was asked to go and see to have a ear assessment. So she's going to do that, and everything seems to be normal. So currently she wants to know whether the child is autistic, and then also she wants to take the child to school. She doesn't know whether to take the child to a regular school or to take the child to a special school, like Hope says.
Yeah. So I think that for the child being 2, what we already talked about, some of the presentation of autism, like some of the symptoms of autism, and we've talked about the fact that it's not just speech, but then there are all these other aspects of it. Of course, speech is such a big part of it. I think if she has a 2-year-old who is not talking, you really want to start off some interventions. At least she knows that the child does not have a hearing loss. So we know that this lack of speech is not because of a hearing loss. So, this is why we kind of talked about some of these educational challenges and making the decisions and all of that. And both parents who spoke to us, there's one who had been through the mainstream school and then deciding, no, I need to find a place where my child's needs is going to be met. So that's definitely going to be one of the things that she's going to have to look at. I think in terms of early intervention, she definitely wants a place where the child can have access to speech therapy, or if she wants the child to go to regular mainstream school, then she has to have the ability to send the child to a speech therapist for them to evaluate the child as well. And then if there are other behaviors that are concerning, this is when you want to make the decision as to, do I have this child have full assessment for autism? And I think Hope Setters can guide you in that direction, because there are a few centers in Accra that they can do some autism diagnosis. And then one of the presentations that I did talk about some screening tools. So you can always start off from a screening tool perspective, go through some of the questions, and then based off that screening tool and other developmental areas, we are able to tell, okay, this child may be at high risk for autism. And if the child is at high risk for autism, then you can pursue that line of assessment. So hopefully this helps guide her a little bit. So okay. Mary's question, she was saying that it's a fight to get him to do, so she's wondering whether it has to do with the age or is due to the autism. I think it can be both. So if you, and it also depends on the child's level of language, how the child is able to communicate. And it, you know, sometimes having autism means I'm rigid. I want to do things the way I want to do it. I'm not flexible, and I'm not prepared to change from that, what I want to do. But, you know, 4-year-old is a preschool child, so definitely also has some challenges being at that age. But this still boils down to a behavior intervention, you know, so going through how do we teach him to not use no for everything. And for all you know, he loves using the word no because that's one of the words that he has. So sometimes when I'm evaluating children with autism and I'm assessing them, like I did an assessment yesterday, and this child is fascinated with elephants. So every discussion, every conversation, every now and then he takes me back to elephants, you know, because that's something that he loves to talk about. And once we need to shift and move away from the elephant, it becomes a big, you know, it's a big distress, significant distress for him. So you have to look at all of that. Is he using the no in context sometimes? Is he using it because he said the word, he loves the word, he wants to use it? And if that is it, then sometimes we have to figure out whether there is a behavior reason for that and how we can help address it for him. Dr. Mensah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dumor. I think the questions are finished. So we can confidently say we are coming to the end of this program. Though we are ending autism lecture, we are not done yet. We'll put our handles on so that there are some people who haven't been with us from beginning. So we are hoping that our link will be shared so that if you don't have the first and the second lecture, you can actually listen to it again. If there are any further questions or any you want your child to be examined, you can still come to Alpha Medical Center. We still link with Dr. Dumor and then have the child examined and then diagnosed. Hope Setters, for those who are also who have been diagnosed and I think are in need of a school or a place that will help their children, I think you can go to Hope Setters. I've done free advertisement for them. You have to pay me for that. So Hope Setters, since today gave us a lecture, we do free advertisement for you. And we at Rafa, we still are running our home service. So for people who you know, COVID is still on the rise, so people who are reluctant to come to the hospital, our numbers will be put out there so that if you want home to be assessed at home, we can actually do that, not only for autism but any other disease. And then also we run the telemedicine. We have our telemedicine also running, so we don't necessarily have to come to your home. You can speak to us on phone. We diagnose, send you prescription. If you want medications to be delivered to you too, we do that also. So you can access those services that we have. Apart from that, we still run regular 24 hours 7. We have various specialists, pediatricians. If you want Dr. Dumor, we'll have a way of connecting her to you. But there are other pediatricians as well. We have physicians, we have surgeons, we also have dermatologists, urology, gynecology. So whichever, I think that whichever specialty you want, you'll be able to get access to that. This is not going to end our Zoom meetings. We've taken it upon ourselves to have a monthly Zoom lecture. So I think that we've done PDs for the last 3 months, so we might rest on it a bit, but I think that we'll come back again in April. Since April is Autism Month, we should do something about it. But apart from that, we have other lectures that we are going to deliver. We will send you the links through the various means that we normally do. Our Facebook link is also available. YouTube is we are also there, and we are also on Instagram. I think that my people are sharing it on. They are sharing the link, so you can contact us anytime, anywhere. I'll be ready to serve you. Dr. Dumor, I want to take this opportunity to thank you so much. You've been of immense help to us. We are so grateful for these lectures. You've been with us for 3 months and you've been consistent, and it has been exciting. I've really enjoyed the lectures. Unfortunately, I wasn't in for the second one, but I did check on it in the I checked on it online. So we are grateful. Rafa is grateful to you for all that you have done. We'll be expecting you to come to Ghana. When you come to Ghana, we will engage you more. But then even as you are there, whenever there is a pediatric issue, we'll call you. And then if we, in our lectures, I think that we'll also fall on you again, one of our lectures, so that you'll still be with us. God richly bless you. And then to the participants, we've had people who have worked through with us for 3 months. I would want to say thank you. Thank you to host setters, Auntie Baba. Thank you, Mr. Alasan. Thank you.
Auntie Olivia.
Auntie Olivia. Yes, Auntie Olivia. Thank you so much. We are grateful. Your experiences have really helped us. God richly bless you. Thank you so much. Okay, so I think that if anybody has any, since this is our last lecture on autism, if anyone has any comments before we go off, just leave the door open so that if anyone has a comment, you can comment.
I do want to add that it's been a pleasure for me. I have learned so much from everybody, the questions, the participants being so engaging. I know that this is the first step in terms of creating autism awareness, and we will continue to talk about it, just like you said. I can't thank Raphael enough for this platform and organizing and being, providing this opportunity for me to talk about it. You can tell I'm a very passionate person when it comes to autism. I feel like I'm a lifelong student of it. I continue to learn so many so much about the condition and then different aspects of it as well. And we all need to. I think that there is no better voice than the one who stands for one who cannot talk for themselves. And so all of us having learned a little bit more, this is to prepare us, and make us better advocates for children with special needs, especially children with autism, support families, and, be able to provide that extra encouragement and hope for them, sometimes when they are at their wit's end, just for them to know that they are not alone in this, that they have a community that is supporting them is important.
Okay, thank you so much. Please, from the participants, anyone has a question? No, not a question now. Any comment? Okay, so if there's no comments, could one of you pray for us so that we end? Any volunteer? Oh. Then I'm going to look through. Auntie Elsie, please, are you still there?
Yes, please, I am here.
Yes.
I do want to, Salome, I want to say I know Auntie Elsie personally, and she is amazing. She's been a great support system for me and my kids. So I'm excited that she is on here.
Okay, then I think I made a good choice.
You did.
Okay, Auntie Elsie, please pray for us.
Okay, we are praying. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for today. We give you praise for a successful presentation. We are grateful for all that we have learned today. We commit the rest of the day, the rest of the week, and the year into your hands. We pray that you grant us the strength to be able to go through for our parents, our family, participants who have kids who are presenting, who are autistic. We pray for the strength to be able to love their kids just as they are, accept them, and be the best that they can be unto them. We pray also that as we leave this meeting, help us to be able to share whatever knowledge we have learned today with those who are not able to attend, and even in our churches, in our offices, wherever that we find ourselves. Please protect us, touch the work of our hands, help us to be blessing unto others. We thank you for this opportunity once again. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Auntie Elsie. Okay, thank you, everybody. God richly bless you for joining us. We'll meet again for our next lecture next month. God bless you. Have a very great day. Yeah.
Amen. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
God bless you all. Amen.
Amen.